Hey everyone, I'm Zenith Priest, and welcome to my introduction for Keeper of the Forbidden Wilds, where I'll give you insight into the nature of the spirit and show you how to drive off the invaders by turn 5. Keeper is a moderate complexity spirit that prioritizes offense and defense. Unlike most spirits in either of these categories, its offense takes a little setup and is energy intensive, and its defense takes the form of utilizing wilds to prevent explorers from invading the island, rather than granting explicit defensive values. We start with a single presence in the highest jungle and place a wilds there as well. This means it'll take a couple turns to get established, but in that time, Keeper quickly gains potential via rapid presence placement and extra powers. Forbidden Ground pushes out Altahan in a land when a sacred site is established. Keep an eye out for potential counterattacks and be sure to move them out of your way. We'll see later that Keeper is not concerned with the safety of the Dahan. We have 4 growth options and get to pick 2 of them each turn. The first 2 are straightforward, giving an energy when we reclaim, or simply gaining a power. Our next option will gain energy while placing presence, but even though we have a range of 3, we can only place it where we already have presence or where there's a wilds. Our final option is a bit unique, requiring us to pay 3 energy before gaining a power and placing a presence at range in a land without blight. While not that powerful on its own, combining this with the other presence option seems really strong, and it'll be this direction that we'll explore in the demo game. Our presence tracks offer a lot of potential, reaching 9 energy and 5 card plays. Getting there is also fairly straightforward if we can stay on task and open up 2 presents a turn. Keeper has 2 innate powers. Punish those who trespass deals damage in one of your lands, which includes destroying a Dahan if we haven't pushed them out already. With enough leaves, we can split that damage in one of our other lands, and the middle tier adds extra damage for each pair of Sun and Leaf we have. With a range of 0, you'll need to actively plant yourself with the invaders, or use other powers to move the invaders to you. Spreading Wilds pushes explorers out of a nearby unblighted land, adding wilds if that land is now clear of explorers. Each of these effects require different elements, and they can be done independently. There's also a couple of options for extending the range of this power through either extra leaves or an air. Stopping a new explorer is the obvious use, but you can also set up the next place for your presence or block a land from exploring in the future. For the unique powers, Sacrosanct Wilderness targets a nearby unblighted land and pushes 2 to Han. You then choose to add a wilds or deal damage per wilds already there. If you're trying to set up a land for presence, consider what may be exploring, or you might end up losing your foothold. Boon of Growing Power allows the spirit to gain a power plus an energy if you target an ally. Having the extra power is nice, but it's not crucial to the strategy, so consider allies that may benefit more. Regrow from Roots cleans up blight in a nearby jungle or wetland. Depending on your starting board, this may have more intrinsic value, and it does allow you to afford letting certain lands go if you can't quite deal with it in the moment. Towering Wrath is a scalable offense power, adding fear and dealing damage close to your sacred site, plus extra damage for other sacred sites nearby. It also destroys all Dahan in that land, so keep that in mind. Because this strategy focuses on spending energy on the last growth option, we won't be able to use this as early as we might otherwise, but we should be able to hit a little harder once we can. And with that, let's get started on a demo game. As a moderate complexity spirit that requires the Branch and Claw expansion, we won't have a power progression deck, but I've disabled the events to keep decisions as simple as possible. This gives us access to command beasts once the invaders reach stage 2. Keeper doesn't add or really make use of beasts, but taking out a single explorer should you have the opportunity will generally be worthwhile. Alright, let's begin. Turn 1. The invaders have explored into the lower jungle and removed our wilds. There's not much we can do about land 1, but even if they explore closer, this strategy lets the invaders throw the first punch, focusing instead on increasing our might. In a later video, I'd like to explore a more risky turn 1 strategy, giving Towering Wrath a more aggressive role to play. With this strategy, our priorities for this turn are twofold: placing a wilds down to spread out from our starting land, and have at least 2 energy at the start of next turn so we can begin utilizing the last growth option. How we achieve this will depend on which power we pick, so let's take a look at the minor deck. Promises of Protection has Sun and gathers Dahan in a land 2 away from your sacred site, granting them extra health as long as they stay there. It won't stop a land from blighting, but it may help clear the invaders. Uncanny Melting also contains sun, and lets us clear blight in a wetlands near our sacred site. We could certainly make use of this on a future turn, even if it does have some overlap with regrow from roots. Call of the Dahan Ways doesn't have any of our elements, so we'll need to pass. Steam Vents only has fire, and we're not likely to find much value from its effect, as our primary means of placing presence requires explorers to be absent. Maybe if this showed up later when we could hit the threshold, but now is just too soon. Of the two sun powers, Promises of Protection will clear land 1, and we can possibly clean up the mess later with regrow from roots. Our second growth option will place a presence to create a sacred site, opening up a sun. In keeping with our priorities, playing Boon of Growing Power gives us 2 sun and a leaf, guaranteeing we can place wilds in a land clear of explorers and keep our energy at 2 or above. Other powers with sun and leaf are viable replacements, as they may even help you deal with some of our initial problems, and zero-cost powers with at least sun allow you to open up 2 plays instead. Now that the invaders have explored into the mountains, let's use Boon to grab another minor power and prepare for next turn. Gift of Power is a cheaper version of the power we're now using, restricting the option to only gaining minor powers. With just Leaf, this isn't quite as tempting as it would be if it also had any of our other elements. Twilight Fog brings Madness, adds Strife, and pushes it a Dahan, dealing damage to any that remain. With Sun and Air and a cost of 0, this would have been a deal last time. The Air is slightly less useful now, but it's still a good choice. Animated Rackroot at first glance suffers the same drawback we saw with Steam Vents. However, the choice to add wilds in our land, plus the leaf and fire, could make this pretty handy. Veil the Night's Hunt could clear the lower mountain, but without any elements, and a cost of 1, Twilight Fog seems a better way to do that. I think either Fog or Rackroot are good picks, but I'm going to keep our Sun and Leaf powers balanced and choose Rackroot. With that decided, we can spread wilds into the upper mountain, pushing the explorer out of the way and gaining access to the upper portions of the island, hoping to clear them out as we work our way down. Turn 2. In order to use our last growth option, we'll need to gain 1 more energy. Using the third option, take the presence from either track and place it with the wilds. If you opened up 2 card plays last turn, be sure to open up the sun this time. Elemental Boon solidifies our elements, and is always a good choice if nothing else is available. Drift Down into Slumber is a decent defense card if you target a jungle or sand, and it turns out we have one of those about to blight. Rain of Blood is a fun little fear card, but without any of our elements, we're going to pass. Gift of Constancy is a solid choice, granting 2 energy and a reclaim at the end of the turn. Even though we could clear the jungles with Promises of Protection, I'd like to delay blighting a little longer if possible, since Keeper has a vulnerability to those lands, making Slumber our pick this time. Taking another presence to form our second sacred site, we should now have 4 energy and 2 card plays unlocked. Our plays this turn will be Sacrosanct Wilderness and Drift Down into Slumber, effectively isolating the upper half of the island and still keeping us with 2 energy for next turn. After building in the mountains, the invaders explore into the middle wetlands. Without any way to push them off this turn, spreading wilds into the sands will give us access to the whole island. Turn 3. Our growth options will be the same as last turn, and in the same order. If you find yourself with 3 energy, then choose the last growth option first, giving you an extra power to help decide where you want to place your presence, being no longer limited to your presence or wilds. Which track to take from will depend a lot on which powers you've picked up, and a little on your personal style. Keep in mind that if you want to continue placing 2 presents a turn, you'll need to have at least 2 energy at the start of the next turn. Here, we're able to have a fairly big turn and keep our energy up if we take from the top track, so let's do that. The plan is to play Towering Wrath and Animated Rackroot. However, let's see what a major power might do to change our mind. Power Storm can be quite useful, with either of our damage powers being good candidates to repeat. We're just shy of being able to use it this turn, and its threshold can be pretty tricky to reach, but we could still pick it up for later. The Treason Stone Speak of War is tempting just for the elements, and its effect can be useful since we still have Dahan left. Its threshold is fairly easy to reach, allowing us to deal damage and move the defense to elsewhere if required. Savage Transformation, despite not having our elements, adds to our ability to stop new explorers. Our other options are certainly better, but this one could do in a pinch. Strangling Firevine requires presence in a sands, which we have, destroys all explorers, adds wilds, and then deals damage per wilds in the area. If Firevine was fast, I'd take it no question, but trees and stones means we can keep our island isolated, making it a slightly better pick in my opinion, especially as we enter Stage 2 exploration. For getting the boon, let's complete our sacred site by taking from the top track. Our new power does change our plans slightly. With trees and stones keeping our board isolated, we have some space to clean up with regrow from roots. Destroying the explorers in the wetlands, let's push the Dahan into the jungle. The Dahan in the mountains destroy the town there on the counterattack. And without anywhere to build, the invaders cut through our wilds rather than exploring into the sands. After removing some light, use spreading wilds in the jungle, pushing the explorer into our sands and giving us a place to expand. Turn 4. We don't have much to worry about, yet we're still a long way from Terror level 2, so we'll need a way to either finish off the last explorers or ramp up our fear. First, let's place a presence down, this time from the bottom track, giving us enough energy to take the last option again and see which new power we can grab. Because we can already handle the sands, the Lone Explorer might more easily be handled with a minor power or a fear card if you can just add one more fear. Swarming Wasps adds a beast in a non-blighted land, or pushes invaders out if there's a beast already present. If the mountains weren't blighted, there's a good chance this would have helped end the game. Here There Be Monsters pushes invaders out of one of our lands, adding extra fear if beasts are present. Not really what we're looking for. Tormenting Rotflies adds disease or generates fear from a sands or wetlands. If it were fast, then maybe, but Portents of Disaster is also generating fear. And with nothing to get rid of the Mountain Explorer, let's grab Portents and see if the fear card can. Opening up a third card play, we finish the sacred site in the jungles, pushing the Dahan into pairs and avoiding the coastal sands. Our plays will be Portents for the fear card, Towering Wrath for the sands, and Animated Rackroot because if we had events, extra elements in a higher tier of our innate could come in handy. Portents gives us our first fear card, Immigration Slows, which doesn't quite take care of the Explorer as we hoped. Even with the game continuing on, we still have the island pretty much on lockdown, being able to handle even a coastal Explorer. The Mountain Explorer is slightly inconvenient with the Blight there, and we just missed Terror level 2 as we use our powers to get as far as we can. Fortunately, next turn looks fairly straightforward as more Portents of Disasters seals the invader's fate. Some final thoughts on Keeper of the Forbidden Wilds. Your initial power gains often help, but many times you'll still blight at least once by turn 3. Stay focused, your extra powers and rapid growth will quickly turn the tables. In general, blight removal powers are worth considering. They tend to have at least one of your elements anyway, and cleaning up gives you more presence options for later. In this demo, I mindlessly created sacred sites whenever I could, just to make things simpler. However, with the last growth option, our only limitation is that the land not be blighted, so we could look ahead a little and place it alone, completing the sacred site there when it becomes relevant. Around turn 4 or 5, you may have already found everything you need to succeed. Reclaim and repeat as necessary, using the third growth option to take presence off whichever track you need. Keep track of lands with little adjacency, as it may be harder to deal with just Towering Wrath. Control powers are best, bringing them out of the corner, and a high damage power takes them out for good. Either way, these tend to be some of your trickier problems. Alright everyone, that's all I've got this time. Hope you gained some insight, and good luck in your next games.